I'm sorry, you're so popular.
Good morning. Shut Kwame. Welcome back to the Sports Break. On our episode, I'm Renee Washington with Kwame Fisher-Jones, and we are going to get right into some discussions about the NBA.
Yes.
So, yesterday was a big day for NBA news. We heard a lot from players being traded to some presidents being mutually parted.
Yeah.
So, let's start off with the Knicks. Adios, Phil Jackson. Finally, after 3 years and not making the playoffs at all, and all this conversation about getting rid of him, has finally happened. The triangle offense is gone. How do you feel about them finally getting rid of Phil Jackson? I'm happy. I don't know.
Why are you happy? In the media, we love Phil Jackson.
I love Phil Jackson.
Things to talk about. This dysfunction makes. What are you, a Knicks fan? Is that what they're a closet Knicks? So we should love it. If you're a fan of any other team, Phil Jackson being a general manager is great for the dysfunction for us to cover. At first, I was like, okay, it makes sense. Phil had to move on, whatever have you. But in the last 24 hours, it's been a lot of dudes that don't have the basketball acumen or resume of Phil Jackson taking shots at Phil Jackson. Like Jeff Hornacek, the triangle offense, we're not running that anymore, and Porzingis is finally on board with it. Dude, you haven't even won a playoff series, if I'm not mistaken, and you want to diss this man? Like, that type of greatness, that type of intelligence, sometimes there's some irreverence that's tied into it. You have to take the good with the bad, but circumstances breed character, and he's a dude who, through the circumstances, his character shows that he can help you win. So if I'm a Knicks fan, I think this isn't as good as you think it is, because flip this, and I think we talked about this on Tuesday. The Knicks have been deplorable drafted. They've been putrid.
Yep.
The next two All-Stars that were drafted by the Knicks will probably be Frank Ntilikina.
Sure.
First thing in the morning. Bear with me. And Kristaps Porzingis will probably be All-Stars. Phil Jackson brought them in.
Yeah.
So just think about that. Phil Jackson brought them in.
Yeah,
So
and two players that Knicks fans did not want. I mean, they didn't want Porzingis 2 years ago. They were openly frustrated. You could see all the fans doing all this and all the extra stuff. And then this year they didn't want Frank.
Yeah.
It's
bad. If you ask us in an hour, we can both say that name 4 times. But yeah, it's just funny to watch everybody do a dance getting rid of Phil Jackson. And he had his warts, he had his issues, but no one walking the surface is perfect. So that you just don't kick that out the door and replace it with a dude that's never been there. One of my favorite phrases in life is, you can't expect a novice to show you how to do something. You know what I mean? Sometimes an expert has expertise. And you may not like it, but if it gets you to your destination, if they know how to get there, then sometimes you just deal with it and take the ride.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a reason why he has 11 rings.
Well, yeah, he's
and he has, my biggest issue with Phil, because he's proven time and time again he can be a successful president. He can be a successful coach. He knows how to run a team. But in this situation with the Knicks, he was clashing so much with Porzingis and Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo Anthony, as we know, may have some issues and clashes with, I feel like, a lot of people. But for Phil Jackson, it was more trying to force this triangle offense on a team that didn't have it, and he kept bringing in the personnel for it, or what he thought was the personnel for it, and it wasn't working out.
Phil screwed up on a couple spots. He did. No, he did. But how soon we forget. Michael Jordan, when I think it was Phil's second year coaching the Bulls, is running up the court cursing about how much he hates the triangle offense. You know what I mean? Like, it's easy to get the guys that aren't good, that are just happy to be there, to buy on. It's the guys that will be there when you're not there.
And that's the part that I think Phil Jackson missed out on. Because we know the triangle offense can work, and we know that he was bringing in the players that could run the triangle offense. Where the distance was, or that gray area was not communicating and getting all the players to buy into it. So if you don't have every single player on board, especially a Carmelo Anthony and Porzingis, it's not going to work. You need every single player to truly understand, this is what we're going to run, this is what we're going to do, and if it's working or not working, we're going to stick to it, because eventually it'll come together. And they didn't have that. He was pushing for it, they were pushing for other things, and they were openly clashing. That's why, I mean, a lot of fans and people didn't like him, because he didn't get along with Carmelo Anthony and Porzingis. But at the end of the day, they weren't bought in.
And it's a fair point. Well,
Thank
good
you.
point. I just feel like sometimes when you're in charge, I don't owe you an explanation. Shut up, clown. Do it. And you can't say that, and maybe that's how Phil came off, but it's just, at times when you don't have time to break every decision down and explain everything to everybody. I'm where I am because I can do this. You're where you are because you can do it. I don't ask you why you shoot from the left wing at 18 feet instead of driving. So I don't need to explain everything to you. And that I think it's not just Carmelo and Porzingis. I think today's NBA player has so much, I don't say given to them, but they receive so much instantly that sometimes the trials and errors of going through things and achievement is lost because they accumulated so fast.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I love Carmelo, and he fell off this year. But the fact is, Phil didn't owe anybody an explanation. Like, I'm here to help you get better. If you think for a moment I don't want to help you get better, then yeah, we should part our ways. Right. But if you know that I'm here because you look good, you looking good makes me look good. Right. We all eat, so.
I mean, I think it goes into like parenting. I'm not a parent, obviously.
Oh, we know. Or being a whole other world.
Or being a boss. Being a boss.
Yes.
You have that experience that your employee or your child does not have, and so you see things differently. And sometimes you may have to tell them to do something, and they just got to do it, and just trust that you had their best interest at heart. And I don't think that was there. And I do agree with you in the sense that today's NBA players are maybe a little more entitled. You have players that
are... Renee.
I know.
That's a tough word. Entitled. That's a tough word.
I'm throwing it out there. Now, I'm not saying entitled in the sense that they didn't have to work for where they got to. I think it's entitled in that especially with social media, players are now getting that NBA coverage without even being an NBA player. Like, you see high school players, even middle school players that are being ranked top in the country, that are all over YouTube, all over social media, and being treated like an NBA player without being an NBA player. And it's so now once you get to the NBA, it's like, oh, I made it, here I am.
I know we gotta move on. I just want to wrap this up real fast. I'll wrap it up like this. The finish line. The finish line is not where it needs to be.
Right.
And that's the problem. You think you've accomplished, you think you've arrived, you think you've done it, and there's still more work to do. And that, I think the difference is, and it started in the 80s, started in the 90s and started to go further. So now we have a guy who we're about to transition into. I'll give you a transition on a second. A guy like Chris Paul.
Perfect.
Who in this case, people keep putting him in the same breath as a LeBron and a Dwayne Wade and super friends, and him and James Harden are supposed to be on an alleged super team. Neither one of these dudes, in Chris Paul's case, hasn't made it past the second round ever.
No.
And in James Harden's case, hasn't made it to a final. So they shouldn't be held in that ilk or in that regard.
Right, and they're all-star players, but they're not on that level. And as you did mention, Chris Paul is in that same conversation now. Chris Paul yesterday, if you haven't heard, is officially a Rocket now. So the Rockets traded 7 players, including Lou Williams, we just saw Monday night as one of the nominees for 6th Man of the Year. Now he's being moved to the Clippers. They traded cash. They traded a first round pick for the 2018 draft. All this for Chris Paul. And now they're saying that they're going to be able to compete with the Warriors. I mean, their GM even said that if you want, it's a weapon. If you want to be in this war or this battle, you got to bring in the best players, or else you're going to be on the sidelines. So they feel like bringing Chris Paul in, who, as we know, has a track record of not getting along with his teammates with Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan. You've got James Harden, who didn't work well with Dwight Howard. And then you have Mike D'Antoni, who has had some issues in the past with Kobe. So, now you're bringing...
Why couldn't we get the syllable quotes, though? I don't
know.
Kobe.
Because I don't know. I don't have a side on that one, so I'm going to air quote that one.
She's lying right now. Obviously, she has a side there.
So, here's the thing. Those 3 now are together. You have... Because Mike D'Antoni's a big part of it, too. So, James Harden, Chris Paul, and now they still have Eric Gordon and players like that are good supporting players. Are they now going to suddenly be able to get...
No.
Maybe get to finish?
Not a shot in hell, no. And I'll break the technical side of it schematically down on NBA Files this Saturday at 1:15 with host Everett Terry.
Clean plug for your Saturday.
That was flyer.
That was nice. Smooth.
But, for morning coffee, I'll keep it brief. Chris Paul always gets hurt. So he'll get hurt. James Harden is terrible without the ball. That's why Oklahoma City had to trade him. That'll happen. And Daryl Morey is possibly the worst. He is not drafted well, but he's gotten a pass because he's always made trades. And his goal is not to win a title, it's to be relevant. That's Daryl Morey's goal. It's for people like Renee to discuss them on shows in Morning Coffee. It's not for, I don't mean like in a negative thing, but it's not for people it's not for them to win a title. So just keep that in mind. James Harden didn't get along with Dwight Howard. When's the last all-star or relevant player that Daryl Morey's drafted? He takes the low-hanging fruit, and sometimes that's the most rotten fruit on the tree. So I'll just leave it there. No, they won't. I'll be shocked if they make it out of the second round.
Yeah.
You know, I'll be shocked if they make it out of the second round completely.
I just feel like especially what I've seen lately, in my opinion, teams are just trying to bring in all-stars.
Yeah.
And all-star level players aren't necessarily championship winning players. So just because you might be the best on your team,
say that again. That was good. Say that again.
All-star level players may not be championship winning players.
That's good.
So you may be a flashy player, the best on the Knicks, the best on the Clippers, the best on whoever, the Jazz, but that doesn't mean you're going to be able to beat the Warriors or the Cavs. I mean, LeBron, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, they're wired differently.
Yeah. And
a player like James Harden, who I'm not a huge fan of James Harden. I'm not. Even with Chris
you're
Paul,
a coach. It's because you're a coach.
I value a player that puts in the effort on both ends of the court. You're the one that's disciplined. You're hardworking. You're doing all the grunt work. You're also the player scoring. You're also the player getting assists. You are the all-around player, not just the one that can shoot threes or like he reminds me of someone you see in a park, in a men's league in the park that just doesn't always get back on defense. Pass you the ball.
Your face
go to the
is
basket.
you have such disgust on your face right now. You have such disgust on your face. Like, you're right.
God.
He doesn't play defense.
But he's still always in the conversation for being MVP.
Yeah.
And that's because he scores. He gets those stats. But it's more than just stats. And that's where the Warriors and the Cavs, I mean, especially more LeBron James than the entire Cavs team. No offense, I'm a Cavs fan. That hurts to say. But they're the players that can do it on both ends and get it done. And
he's a numbers harlot. I can sum it up for you like that. He's a numbers harlot. That's where he gets his popularity from. That's what people will know him for. And people that love scoring will say he's one of the top players.
Right.
It's similar to Wilt Chamberlain in that regard. People will argue that Wilt's the best player ever because Wilt scored a lot of points. That's what you bring to the table. You know, but basketball is more than just points. And you'll see it this year. Look, you're going to see James Harden struggle.
Yep.
Because he needs the basketball to be effective.
And Chris Paul needs the basketball.
Chris Paul has had the basketball, and he's barely effective with it. So I'm glad it happened, though, because it would have done no more excuses.
Yeah.
No more excuses. You know, sink or shine. So that's good to go.
Yeah. You had 2 All-Stars. Why you should now be able to knock off the Warriors.
Or at least get to that level. And
right. And they won't. I mean, I still don't even think they're better than the Spurs.
I'll do you one better. Didn't the Clippers have 3 All-Stars and a championship coach?
Yeah.
So how did this all of a sudden become a good...
Yeah.
Like, I don't get why Chris Paul, who was behind this deal, he brokered this deal, he made it happen. He wanted to play with Harden, he wanted to play with an elite wing player. And, I mean, I'm going to be... If I'm picking... It's the same thing with Kevin Durant. If I want to be that dude, if I want to be that nice, I'm going to go where I can just go and plug myself in.
Yeah.
Like, the Pacers would have been a better fit for him because they play in a weaker conference and they do have an elite player. And Paul George, who was comparable to James Harden, Paul George is a better defender. So it's just interesting with some of that. I know we got to move on. You're giving me the look, but it's just interesting.
Not gonna look. I mean, I for Chris Paul, he just trying to get away from Doc Rivers because apparently he was so frustrated that Doc kept his son instead of bringing in Carmelo, which I also don't think would have been the answer. But yeah, they have, again, it doesn't matter how many all-star players you have if they're not going to step up, play as a team, and do it on both ends of the court.
Somebody got to pump the gas.
Everybody
can't drop. It's only one word. Seriously, somebody got to pump the gas. Somebody got to put air in the tire. Somebody got to change the oil. Somebody got to sit in the back. Somebody got to be a backseat driver. That's how that works. It's only
Good
one
car
word.
analogy.
Look at you, see? And you gave me the funny look earlier, like 2 seconds ago, and I still wound up wrapping it up well.
Nicely done. All right, well, when we get back, we will talk about some controversial issues going around the NBA, the NFL, and even college football. So we're going to take a quick break. Don't go too far. We will be right back shortly with more sports talk.
Most of the time, it's easy to know which option is better. Other times, not so much. So it's good to know that Mazola corn oil has 4 times more cholesterol-blocking plant sterols than olive oil. And a recent study found that it can help lower cholesterol 2 times more. Take care of those you love and cook deliciously. Mazola makes it better.
La Esperanza Mexican Restaurant and Bar, the best authentic Mexican restaurant in South Jersey. Your friends and family will enjoy the fun and the food, like our staple guacamole, tamales, and ceviche. Our weekday lunch special is just $7.99. We also offer Saturday and Sunday brunch. Enjoy the largest selection of tequilas in South Jersey, Mexican beers, bottle and draft beers, fresh margaritas, and daily beer and margarita specials. La Esperanza Mexican Restaurant and Bar, family owned and operated since 2002.
Welcome back to the Sports Break. I'm Renee Washington, joined by Kwame Fisher-Jones, and we're now going to get into something a little more serious. So I actually was reading this, and I ironically was reading another story about Tim Duncan, but Clinton Portis, former Redskins running back, filed bankruptcy after, it was in 2013. And long story short, his bankruptcy drove him to want to kill someone. Now the reason being, Clinton Portis had worked with 3 financial advisors. He gave them his money, trusted them to safely invest it, take care of it, manage it, and ended up being bankrupt because they disappeared. Now, Tim Duncan also had the same situation, and his former financial advisor was just sentenced to 4 years in federal prison for defrauding millions of dollars. So my question is, this is like damned if you do, damned if you don't. Excuse my language. I guess that's kind of a curse word. But
is it really?
In my opinion, yes.
Oh, okay.
I don't like cursing, so that was hard to say.
You curse up a storm every break.
That's not true.
You throw your water and call every time.
Yes.
This segment's not going the way it goes.
So my thing is, with these young athletes, and of course they're older, with young athletes coming into a league, whatever league it is, they're given a lot of money. Mm-hmm. A lot of times they don't know how to manage it, and some end up losing it and becoming bankrupt. Maybe an Allen Iverson, for instance, because they don't know how to manage their money.
AI
They've never
been bankrupt.
Well, not bankrupt fully, but he struggled financially. And you saw you saw his story, so I know you know.
Yeah, a little bit, but AI.
But the point is.
Hold on, no, you're not. I'm just gonna let you slide because you're all dressed up. I'm not just gonna let that roll. AI, his money was put aside for him.
Right.
So he didn't have the NBA checks coming in, so he had to go on a budget. Because people were like, we're not going to let you blow through $200 million. We'll let you blow through 100. We're going to take this other 100 million and put it away. Like AI gets a month just off of his, money that he made through the career. He's getting high 6 figures each month. Yeah. And that's not including what the big 3 plays him. That's not including his lifetime contract Reebok. And AI is good. And if you ever seen the way AI dresses, like as a dude that wears jeans and sneakers and everything. That stuff is expensive, despite popular belief. It's probably up there with a Joseph A. Banks suit or whatever. So his attire is expensive, and he's not able to drive around in a Bentley for no reason. But he's far from bankrupt. Clinton Portis,
not
bankrupt.
He did struggle though. But if you watched his story, years back, he's got it together now. That's why he's in the big 3 league partly. But anyways, back to what I was saying. Clinton Portis, Tim Duncan, these players that are doing what's supposed to be the right decision in investing, working with a financial advisor to have them manage their money, and they turn around and disappear.
So, what can they do? I mean, they're babies, and we're all babies when we come in our 20s. We think we know things. No, seriously. I mean, we now have poor decisions and the freedom to bask in those poor decisions. So, the best way to handle it is to not give your money to people. That's a thought. Sit back. Shaquille O'Neal has a great story. He got his first $1 million, and he bought himself a Bentley. He bought a Bentley, and then his mother says, or his father says, "Where's mine?" So he goes and buys another one, and he said he makes another purchase, and his tax guy accountant calls him and says, "You're broke. You're in debt." He said, "What do you mean? I just got $1 million." He said, "Yeah, well, there's this pesky thing called taxes." So that chops it off from the top.
Surprise!
And then the 2 cars he bought. So he said after that, he said he took a certain amount of money that he could live off and splurge and still spend and still be, frivolous with, but he also took a percentage and put it away. And that's not a hard decision. Now he's investing in numerous things. Now he's got his doctorate. Now he's doing things. And I know Shaquille, it's easy to point to an isolated situation and say everyone can have that same success. But the fact of the matter remains that don't give your money away. Don't get a financial advisor. An accountant is different than a financial advisor. An accountant's job is to account for your money. A financial advisor is going to advise you on your finances, on where you should go. But an accountant's job is to call you and say you're broke. That's what an accountant's job is. It's not to say, I think Chick-fil-A is a great investment. I think a topless car wash is a great investment. No. An accountant's job is to say, you're broke. I don't care where you spent it. You just don't have anything, and my check's due on the 15th. That's where you start. And then accept that you're going to make some mistakes financially. Don't try to be the guy that's got it together. Don't try to be the guy that has got it all figured out and say, well, I got this guy, I got money, this dude watching this dude to make sure I don't go broke. No, just have one guy who helps you specifically tell you where your money is. This month you spent more than you spent last month, so you can account for it. And then when you can devote the attention and the resources to getting in things financially, then invest, then get an advisor. But in your 20s, you don't know what's hot. We've seen the way Clinton Portis dressed during his playing days. He had no clue. He didn't know he didn't have style. Just because nobody tells you it's wrong doesn't mean it's right. Dwayne Wade's another dude. He's wearing girl pants. I would not trust Dwayne Wade with my money. And as funny as it is, Russell Westbrook's another dude. That break from the norm of the standard business world gives insight into your business acumen, because there's a sense of normalcy that needs to go into a business meeting. You don't always want to reinvent the wheel. You just want to make it run smoother.
I guess the hard part is with athletes or any type of celebrity is that you're always trying to be your own. Mm-hmm. And so to me, like, showing up to a game in wacky mismatched clothes with all these different designs and the crazy sunglasses and hats and wigs or whatever. That's
you hanging out with. Okay.
That's not professional.
Yeah.
But I mean, you should go in something that makes sense. But the bigger issue here, and you talked about all these decisions that should be made when you are 18, 19, 20, 21, you're given all this money, you're given all this fame, you're on a big stage. Now you have your mom, you promised you'd buy her a house and a car. Mm-hmm. You have all your homeboys that you grew up with that are now talking about, where's my cut? I've been with you since back when we were on the park, in the playground back in the day.
Homeboys, though. Yes, I'm laughing at your homeboys. I haven't heard that in years.
Homies, homeboys,
your
boys,
crew, your posse.
Your crew. Your posse.
I'm just messing with you.
Anyway, you have your friends that you've grown up with that are now like, I helped you get there. Where's my cut? I need money. Can you spot me? Whatever. And you see it as people climb. Everyone else wants to hold on to them. They're pulling them down. So it's easy to make those decisions when you're Kwame Fisher-Jones, but when you're a brand new NBA player, rookie season, getting all this money, and now you have girls and friends and all these people that are coming at you with all this attention, it's not so easy to make that decision.
Discipline is what got them to where they were. They have an insane amount of discipline. You know that as a college athlete. You have an insane amount of discipline to play on a professional level. So keeping with that discipline needs to manifest itself from the playing field to off the playing field. And you can only drive one car at a time.
Right.
So if you want to have a car every day of the week, that's fine. But everything costs. That's what I'm trying to say. Everything costs. No, even if it doesn't appear to have the price at that moment, everything has a price. Right. So when you're buying those 7 cars to impress those 9 different women, you cannot have a house here, a house there, a house there. It just doesn't flow. Even if the checks are coming in at 7 figures, because now you're paying property tax in different states. You got all sorts of things that you so everything costs. So I understand what you're saying, and you made a great point. To that, I say this though: discipline matters. And then when you see guys come in dressed a certain way, at 20 you don't see the correlation, but at 40 you do, because it shows an insight. It shows an insight to your discipline as far as what you're willing to do. So it's fine to be wacky, it's fine to be silly, but you have to be disciplined with your money, and you have to be disciplined with your career.
And getting into that discipline, we're going to shift gears a little bit. So Vanderbilt had 3 football players that have been suspended indefinitely, and they're a redshirt freshman cornerback, Frank Coppett, freshman safety, Tate Daly, sophomore wide receiver, Donovan Tennyson. You see a trend here, they're all freshmen and sophomores. And they actually were trying to sell their cell phone or Coppett was trying to sell a cell phone online. The person he sold it to stole it from him, so he created a fake profile to try to buy his stolen cell phone back. shows up to meet the guy with a pellet gun. The guy pulls out a real gun, and somebody in the car shoots him. I mean, fortunately, they didn't have any life-threatening injuries. But that's that discipline. I mean, this is all over a stolen phone. First of all, they could have died.
It's principality.
I mean, for me, none of this makes sense to me. I read this. My question is, what?
You ever watched the show? You ever watched the show Martin? I know it's before your time, but you ever watched the show?
Martin, are you kidding me?
Have you ever watched Martin?
I love Martin.
Okay, I'm
Martin,
just making sure.
are you
Okay,
kidding?
yeah. You know how Martin used to tell you it's a man thing? It's a man thing?
Don't
That's
here.
it
Don't
is.
do
It's
that
a
here.
man
No,
thing.
It's not a man
really
thing.
Is. It's when it says.
I'm gonna cut you off.
It
I'm
is.
gonna cut you off. I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's not a man thing to try to sell your phone, get it stolen, try to steal it back, show up with a pellet gun, and then get shot and nearly die. That's
Because you don't want to. It's a dumb
That's
thing.
dumb.
It's a dumb man thing.
Men, women, whatever.
You'll
that's
never
dumb.
you'll never hear of a woman doing something like that because
That's
at some
dumb.
point
It makes sense.
exactly no well I won't say you guys make sense but at some point you guys are willing to cut your losses.
Like that's it.
As a man, we're like, no, all right, well he got that one, but I'm gonna get this one,
Right.
and then it is escalated.
I guess.
Vanderbilt is where smart kids go too, but common sense ain't always common. This is the best way I can sum it up. Yeah, that story was one of those stories. Like, are you dumb? Like what?
Like what? Literally, that was my. I actually wrote that down. What?
Yeah, like you go
Why
through
are
it
you doing
6
this?
times. Like what? The moral of the story is this though. You know, get a lost or stolen insurance on your cell phone. And you can just replace the cell phone. Get the cloud or get Dropbox and have all those bad pictures and drop them in there. So so then you won't have to worry about your cell phone. You can automatically delete it, report it lost or stolen, and
Do you
erase all
agree
the
with them
information.
being suspended indefinitely?
Yeah, because it was bad decisions. It was bad decisions, and they
Good
need
answer.
you
Good
know.
answer.
Look at you! I'm getting a lot of love here today. Yeah, and I tell young kids all the time when I talk to them, and you know when I used to coach basketball, I tell them, you know, the punishment doesn't have to always fit the crime.
Right.
So sometimes the crime, sometimes the punishment is heavy-handed. Don't commit the crime. You don't have to worry about the punishment.
Yeah, I agree. And for those 3 players, it's a shame to be so young and do something so silly and stupid that now your career could be over. So.
Well, it won't be, and I'm not gonna say hopefully, but it won't be. But it's a great lesson learned.
Definitely. All right, well, thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of The Sports Break. We got to break down the NBA. We got to talk about some controversial issues going on with athletes and college players. But most importantly, you got to...
I got the look. That was the biggest part of the day. I got the look.
All right, Kwame Jones. So, enjoy the rest of your Thursday, and be sure to check out our show tomorrow as we have possibly a guest on the show. But I won't spoil it. No spoilers here. You'll have to tune in tomorrow to see it. So, I'm Renee Washington, joined by Kwame Fisher-Jones, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow.